Alright, here we're going to look at an example on graphing and identifying the translations or transformations of an exponential function. So here we have this function, and the first thing that you need to do before you even consider graphing it is you need to identify its pieces. So when you're identifying translations, what we're doing is we're identifying the motion or movement that is taking place in that function as it relates to the base graph. So if we look here, one thing that we can do right off the bat is we can rearrange our formula or function if we choose, so that we have a better idea of the transformation form. So this would be -3 to the negative x plus 4. Now once we do that, we can identify the moving parts that we have. So first and foremost, our base function is actually f of x equals 3 to the x. Okay. So what this tells me is that the base function that we have is an exponential function. So I'm going to follow and use some exponential rules. First of all, one of the things that tells me is that the negative out in front has to deal with my vertical reflection, and the negative up in my power has to deal with the horizontal reflection. And so because of that, I already know a good chunk of what is going on. So first and foremost, I know I have a horizontal reflection, and this reflection is going to be over the y-axis. I then have a vertical reflection, which is over the x-axis. I then have my very last, which is a vertical shift, and in this case we're going to go up 4. Okay. So we have our two reflections that are going to go on. So one of the things that we know about the base graph of 3 to the x is that the basic graph is going to cross here through 1. It's going to approach the axis in this direction, and it is going to scale up pretty quickly in that direction. And so that is our basic graph that's going on. Now with this, we have to be able to graph the other. So once you identify kind of the pieces, the first thing we have to look at is what the reflection is doing. So my reflection here is first going to be horizontal, which goes over the y. So it's going to reflect it down over the y to here. And so what that means is that my horizontal reflection is going to move. So if I look at this horizontal reflection, it's going to move my base graph so that it is down here. And then my reflection says it's going to come up towards the x-axis here, and it's going to shoot down in this direction here. And so that is the very first movement that we have, is that horizontal reflection. Now the next movement we have is my vertical reflection. And so the vertical reflection sorry about that, I goofed. This first reflection here that I went from this over my x-axis, it was actually my vertical reflection. My horizontal reflection is going to take that idea and spin it. So here if I look, this is my horizontal reflection. This one was my vertical. So the horizontal reflection, if I had started over, would say that we're still going to be right here, but we're spinning over the axis. And so in this case, we would be coming straight up in this direction, and we would approach the axis like this. Okay. That being said, we would then have our vertical reflection, which would come down. which again would say that we would come to here, only we would come in this direction and approach the axis like this. Okay. And so with that, we would then move it up 4. So from here we would go up 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So my actual point is going to start right here. And so now one of the things that we can do is we can use the XY table. And I can take a look at 3 important points. So I can look at what if I have X and Y. And in this case, I look at -1, 0, and 1. Okay. So here at -1, essentially what happens is we would have -3 raised to the negative of -1 plus 4. And so in this case, when we do that, we're going to end up with 1 as a result. Here at 0, we would have -3 raised to the negative of 0 plus 4, which in this case is going to be 3. And then at 1, we would have -3 to the negative of 1 plus 4, which is going to give me roughly 3.7. Okay. And so here what's actually going to happen is that my graph here is going to get increasingly close right here to where x equals 4, and then is going to shoot down. So at -1, we're at 1, so that would be here. And so we would keep going down like this. Okay, and so that is what our graph would actually be doing. So essentially the biggest thing that you need to know is you need to know how to identify your parts, and then how to use your XY table to check your graph. Okay. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, I do hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time.